For this week's quiz, we'll be exploring the American Civil Rights Movement. Which event marked the beginning of the American Civil Rights Movement of the 1950s and 1960s? Was it Brown versus Board of Education, the Selma to Montgomery March, the Montgomery bus boycott, or the March on Washington? The Montgomery bus boycott marked the beginning of the American Civil Rights Movement. The arrest of which citizen on December 1, 1955 inspired the Montgomery bus boycott? Was it Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, Malcolm X, or Thurgood Marshall? The arrest of Rosa Parks inspired the Montgomery bus boycott. Who was the first president of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, or SCLC? Was it Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, Medgar Evers, or John Lewis? Martin Luther King Jr. was the first president of the SCLC. What was the primary strategy of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, or SNCC? Was it armed resistance, legal challenges, economic boycotts, or grassroots organizing? The primary strategy of the SNCC was grassroots organizing. Who coined the phrase Black Power? Was it Malcolm X, Stokely Carmichael, Martin Luther King Jr., or James Baldwin? Stokely Carmichael coined the phrase Black Power. What was the outcome of the sit-in movement? Increased segregation, a Supreme Court ban, desegregated lunch counters, or it had no impact. The outcome of the sit-in movement was desegregated lunch counters. What organization was instrumental in desegregating interstate transportation? Was it the Freedom Riders, Black Panthers, Congress of Racial Equality, or the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee? The Freedom Riders helped desegregate interstate transportation. Who was the NAACP lawyer who argued the Brown versus Board of Education case before the Supreme Court? Was it John Lewis, Malcolm X, Medgar Evers, or Thurgood Marshall? Thurgood Marshall argued the Brown versus Board of Education case. What was the outcome of the Brown versus Board of Education case for segregation in schools? Integration was banned, segregation was upheld, states could choose, or segregation was declared unconstitutional. Segregation was declared unconstitutional. What was the purpose of the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom? Was it to advocate for civil rights legislation, to protest segregation in schools, to demand voting rights, or to support affirmative action? It was to advocate for civil rights legislation. Who was the youngest speaker at the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom? Was it Ruby Bridges, John Lewis, Diane Nash, or Floyd McKissick? The youngest speaker at the March on Washington was John Lewis. What legislation outlawed segregation in public places and banned employment discrimination? The Civil Rights Act of 1964, Voting Rights Act of 1965, 14th Amendment, or Emancipation Proclamation? It was the Civil Rights Act of 1964. What was the goal of the Freedom Summer Project in 1964? Was it to protest segregation, register voters, lobby legislators, or organize boycotts? The goal of the Freedom Summer Project was to register voters. What was the purpose of the Selma to Montgomery March? Was it to protest segregation in schools, demand economic opportunity, protest redlining, or advocate for voting rights? The purpose of the march was to advocate for voting rights. Which event led to the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965? Was it Bloody Sunday, the March on Washington, the Birmingham Campaign, or the Selma-Montgomery March? Bloody Sunday led to the passage of the Voting Rights Act. How did you do? What would you like to see next? We post new shorts every day, and a new quiz just like this every week. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything. See those quizzes on the right side of the screen. Why not try one out? Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. Hope you have a historic day.